have any ideas, I'll just follow the rubric. So here, do we usually start with a prayer, or is that a...
We haven't, but we certainly can if you want to.
Okay, yeah, let's start with a prayer. Anyone want to offer it, or I could offer it?
I could offer it.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful that we get together and discuss things for our human resource course. We're excited that we get to learn these new things about recruitment and hiring. We ask that would bless that we can have our minds enlightened and we can have new ideas and new information to help us as we learn this material. We ask you, please bless Arlie, that things will go well as she directs, and that we can also have good ideas as we participate. And we thank you for this, and we say it in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Connie. Okay, so part one, who to hire. So it says, ask for a vote on which two candidates would you hire. That's from the case on the S.G. Cohen case. Are
you guys hearing that weird noise too?
Yeah. I think somebody might be outside. Is somebody outside? No?
No, I'm...
Okay, I'm going to turn off my microphone unless I speak. I think I have a lot of echoing, and so this is Connie. I'm turning mine off.
Okay. Well, I will give my candidate votes first, if nobody minds. So the two that I would choose are Andy, and he was the one who started his own business, the SAT tutoring business. And the main hesitations that seemed like the group had with him was that his GPA wasn't that high. But I think because he was the one starting his own business, that he didn't have the same amount of time to direct to his academics. So I'm voting for him because he is an entrepreneur, and they talked specifically about needing somebody who is willing to take the lead, willing to take risks, willing to really put themselves out there for the company. So he's my first vote for the candidate. And then my second one is actually Martin, and he's the one that has been in the military and has substantial leadership. I think the biggest hesitation that the group has with him is that because he is so experienced, they're worried that he is not going to follow their lead, so to speak. But I think because he is confident and articulate and is a natural leader, that their clients will have a lot of confidence in him, and I think that he would be a good fit. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else want to say who they'd pick?
I do. I'm just running over my notes really quick. I agree with what you're saying, but the last one, I was a little bit worried about if he'd kind of go rogue as well. That was just a little bit, but I liked his initiative and everything. He just seemed like the kind of guy that may have a lot of offers. And so that was my concern. Like, he'd pick someone else anyway, or not like how it and see so independent. But those were just my thoughts. I thought the concern with the man with the children, they were worried about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking for my notes, trying to remember the names. But I felt like he'd be a great fit, and that, if the company is so out of control that they have no life at all, then there's something that needs to get restructured, Really, because, you want good people on your team, and family people are solid people. I remember that's one of the reasons why my husband was picked for a job. So I don't know.
I agree. I also like Ken a lot. I thought that having a family shouldn't, or because I think those are factors that shouldn't come into play when hiring someone based on their experience and their knowledge. I think that they shouldn't really care too much about if he's gonna, break promises. I think that's what the reading said, that they were afraid that they've broken promises to their kids, and so they they didn't guarantee that he wouldn't do that or something like that. Let me. So
I feel like that was a sad like company thought that going to a business and he's like, yeah, I break promises to my kids all the time. It's like to me in my head, I was like, well, what are you doing it all for? You know, if it's not for your family, I don't know. I'd have a hard time with that if my husband was like, you know, I'm out of here for 5 years till I can make my way up. You know.
yeah.
What do you guys think?
I'm ready to say that
Yes.
I think Natalia would be a good candidate. First of all, because she adds to the diversity, but also because of her standing. You know, she's an MBA student with a good GPA. She's young, so she's teachable. I think that they were worried about that she was stiff, you know, in the small talk portion of things. But I imagine that anybody would feel that way. They'd be really nervous, especially with this being one of her chances at a big breakthrough. Let's see. I just feel like she'd add a dynamic to the team that they don't have. She, first of all, be a woman, but also that she's originally European and she could contribute. I think on the world market, you know, she probably has a perspective from her youth, but the fact that she's such a strong student at Cornell, I think that says a lot. So she's my vote.
I liked her too. I thought she has strong analytical skills and she has that finance background. I mean, they're all good candidates. That's the hard part.
Yeah. I'd probably go Andy, Natalia. Seems like Andy's more street smart, I'd say, with business, and she's probably smarter on the book smart. Might make a good team if they can get along.
And was that Nolan? Sorry, I don't have my camera.
That was Nathan.
Nathan, okay. Nolan, do you have any thoughts on who you'd choose? Or
Yeah, I was agreeing with Nathan. Cause like I was looking over the criteria again, and like obviously they want someone who can be more of a self-starter and have entrepreneurial experience. So that would be where Andy would fit in really well because of his company. And then also, like they say, they can stretch for personality. Like they can make exceptions for certain things if they find someone that would be a good fit. And yeah, they're not too sure about Natalia being like too structured or like kind of worrying about her less than perfect English, but just the idea that she has like a really good attitude about everything that she does and like her background in school and her experience that she had working at or the ComScan developing software would just be like super helpful. And like for me personally, I'm wanting to hopefully go into international business, and because of that I'm like really interested in learning a bunch of different languages, and the fact that she's able to speak 3 languages other than English fluently and some French would be like a really big thing that they could even use to try and spread their product and like translate things and maybe even go international or something, which I thought would be like a fun idea.
those are excellent points, Nolan. So now with that all being said, think about what are criteria that would make you not want to hire the people that you chose. And I know we already kind of talked about that, but well, kind of. But anyone that have further thoughts?
I I think that and the other strong candidate that I'd like to vote for is Andy. And the reason why is because he's such a go-getter. His reason for having low grades was that he was working and he didn't have time to study. I think that now that he's in the workforce, he's proven what good work he can do. And so the one thing that would, I think for Natalia, I had cast a vote for her. I think that what would not make me hire her is probably, yeah, how tight and nervous she seems. But maybe like I said, she seems like she's driven. It's hard not to discriminate over that because it might just be her style. And then with Andy, my other top candidate that I'd like to vote for, he, of course, his grades we could discriminate because he seems like he's not that great at grades, but then he has experience that Natalia doesn't. So anyway, that's other thoughts I wanted to add. Someone else can go.
I felt like they were concerned with Andy's GPA at 2.8, but the fact that I think that he ran a business and went to school, I thought was impressive. Anyway, that's kind of not why I wouldn't hire him, but I thought that was impressive because my husband ran a business while he went to school. And I mean, his grades could have been higher, but I mean, when you have a family and you're doing that, I mean, that's a tough load. I don't know.
Okay, well then one other question would be, what else would you want to know about the type of person who can succeed at SG Cohen?
I would want to know about their personality. I would want them like he said in the recruitment, he wanted to get people who had the right fit. I don't personally would want to hire someone that conflicted with other people or was difficult or wasn't willing to work with people. You want to get a happy culture. You don't want a negative, dominating culture. Anyway, that's just one thing I would be wary of.
Definitely. You don't want people that don't get along with each other because they're so different that they can't even have anything in common
or competitive or just difficult, gossipy, whatever.
Anyone else?
In another business class it was saying that the average is there's about 10% of the population that has very difficult personalities. Pretty interesting. And then they gave how to deal with people, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So you can kind of plan on about 10% of your workforce.
10%?
In HR a lot, yeah.
Oh, wow.
The thing that I would want to know more about, and it's difficult because we're looking at it from an outside perspective. If we were part of this group that was doing the interviews, we would know the internal culture better. We talk about it's important to find the right fit. We, as this group of 6 of us, can't really define what the right fit is because we're not part of this dynamic at work. So I would, if that's the most important thing is that the candidate fits into the culture, that's what we need to know more about.
Yeah.
So I guess establishing I guess if we were in this company, we want to establish a culture. If we were, and then have those candidates fit our culture. Okay, so the part 2, and that's the interview process. Why is there so much disagreement between the senior bankers in the Saturday meeting about which recruits to hire? Is it the interview? Is it the type of interviews?
I think it's just the dynamic of the group. There's 30 bankers that are doing these interviews for 30 candidates. When you bring together 30 people asking about, backgrounds, work experience, college experience, whether they're leaders, whether they're entrepreneurs, everyone's going to have people that they're more naturally impressed with and more unimpressed with. It's just human nature. And I think the reason that they are having a hard time is because these last four have aspects about them that are polarizing. You know, if Natalia's stiff, you know, honestly, that may just be her personality. She just may be a little more quiet and reserved. It doesn't mean she's not going to be an excellent banker, but being quiet and reserved is going to turn some people off. Martin, where he's been in the military and he's a little more of a natural leader, there are going to be people who are intimidated by his ability to be a natural leader. And so that's going to turn some people off there, you know, and there's aspects to all four of them that are off-putting to some people. And that's the nature of business. And that's the nature of being human and having to work together as teams. I'm not foolish enough to think that everybody likes me. I certainly don't like everybody. It's just the way the world works.
I felt like one of the aspects that they brought out in the article that I thought was interesting was that you have to be, that senior management would look at different aspects and different qualities than fresh graduates. And so I thought that was an interesting thought.
Oh yeah, what did it say? I wrote some notes. Let me check.
Too, what women and men are probably want and looking people are probably different, you know. I don't know. There's probably a lot of differences.
Absolutely true.
I wonder if women are nicer to women and they're in the interviews, or men nicer to women.
From my own experience and my own observation, women are more critical of women than they are of men. And men are more critical of women than they are of other men. So it's a very interesting dynamic. We kind of have this women need to be perfect or they're not going to work mentality. And I think that's absolutely true.
I agree with you, Erin. I have seen the same thing in other businesses. I agree. Women are critical of women and hypercritical, I think.
Yep.
Especially. Nitpicky.
For sure.
It's true. Because I think Natalia is a perfect candidate. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think they're just trying to do it all too fast. Hiring somebody, going through Super Saturday. When I'm applying for a ton of jobs and I've never been to a Super Saturday. Normally you do all your qualifications and then they sit on you for like from a day to see who's the best person.
It does seem like it's a rather drawn out process, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But if it's short, you kind of get people, I guess, be maybe more inclined to be more aggressive because you have a small time period instead of like dragging their emotional, you know.
That's true. I do hate that, but
yeah, it is rushed though. Sure.
I hadn't thought of that. And maybe in shorter time spans, you just kind of give it your on that I have everything to deliver in this short amount of time. So I hadn't thought of that.
That would be mega high stress. I wouldn't want to do it, honestly.
Yeah.
I thought it was probably, I'll save that for later. It's later in the discussion.
Okay. So, might there be better ways to learn about the candidate? Why can't I say that word? Candidates than traditional interviews. What else might they try? Sorry, I should probably repeat that again. But might there be better ways to learn about the candidates than traditional interviews?
References are the best way, I think, because anybody can fake an interview.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Sorry. I hope I'm not interrupting. Even just references from professors, because you know, a lot of them are coming right out of school, but the professors probably have a good eye because they have experience in the workforce, and they're not going to be coming into these strong universities without their own business experience and banking experience. and they probably can spot the good ones. And so if there was that kind of a reference, I think that would be an asset to the candidates.
Have you guys ever heard of working interviews?
No.
My husband's in the medical world, and what they'll do is they'll actually, like, he's a hygienist, he's in dental school. So you go over there and then they interview you you have a day, you get paid, but you work on patients and they watch you and you can work with people. Anyway, that's a working interview. Those are cool.
That's interesting. I would suggest something along the lines of taking your top candidates and doing kind of like a retreat, like a team building kind of situation, where you go, I don't know, out in the woods and you do, different team building things to, I think when there's competition and a more relaxed atmosphere, you really see people's personalities come out much more than, the business suit, sitting across the desk from someone, really professional interview. And I think it's very easy for somebody to be coached through an interview and put it on almost like a show and not get real answers and real feedback for who they really are. Just as an aside, the last place I worked, one of the supervisors was incredibly impressive in her interview. She interviewed like a champ. It was phenomenal. There was no question she was the right person for the job. And then when she actually got into the role, she was terrible. She did not have the people skills. She did not have the experience. She did not have what it took. And it was a very hard and awkward situation. And so I don't think that necessarily traditional interviews are always the best way to figure this out.
Yeah. So
I kind of like when you do kind of lunch interviews, just because of the same idea Aaron was talking about. Like, it's a more relaxed environment, and so you get to see a little more personality. And whenever that happens, like, I don't know, you can just see a lot more like small details about people. Because like you can see their manners in that different environment, along with how they're answering all of your questions. And then I think you asked a question earlier about like different things that they could have done. I was trying to think of something that came to mind, and one thing was when I got hired by my boss now, um, he would ask me questions like, what do you think your biggest weakness is? And like, what do you think you can do to overcome that weakness and whatever? And so it kind of took the interview on a more personal level rather than just that superficial, I'm qualified, this is how I meet your requirements type thing. It was more like actually getting to know me as a person. And so kind of into that deeper level so you can figure out the cultural fit and the uh, personality dynamics between different employees and things like that. So I thought that was really cool.
I'd like to add on to what Nolan and Aaron both said really quickly. Is that okay, Arlie?
yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Aaron, you said the gal that interviewed, she had the perfect interview, and yet she was terrible at the job. I've heard comments about sometimes the very best 4.0 students aren't the best employees. They learn the material, but they can't execute the work, and so the experience has a lot to do with good things. That was building on Aaron's, and then building on Nolan's comments of interview questions. I did a project last semester for academic advising, and I interviewed the director, And he said the number one question he likes to ask is, how do you, besides what's your weakness, like Nolan said, is how do you respond to change? Because the workforce changes so much that if someone's not willing to respond to change, then they just can't adapt. And adapting is one of the core skills of being a successful work person or business person. So.
That's an excellent question. How do you respond to change? I think that's a really good question. And just two thoughts that I had while Nolan and Connie were talking is there's the story where my best friend, she's in PA school, but prior to PA school, she had to go on interviews for the schools that she was applying to. So she applied to Georgetown and she applied to another university in Pennsylvania. And she said that she was told that the moment that they invited her on to go have lunch, and that the moment that she met with them during the lunch, that's when the interview started. And that they had disqualified a lot of candidates based on how they were treating the servers, or how they were in the interview. Well, in the unbeknownst to them interview during lunch. And so that's how they did their interviews at Georgetown, and I forget the other university. And then the other thought that I had was the behavioral questions, similar to what Connie said and what Nola said, about asking, like, what would you do in this situation, rather than, I think, what did I write in my notes? Or like, what's your greatest strength? Or instead, what would you do in this scenario? Or how would you respond to this? Any more thoughts? If not, we can move on to the following question. Okay, so what are the criteria for choosing candidates at SG Cohen?
So do you mean like aspects like they're choosing not the top 10, or what aspects are we talking about? I think.
What are the criteria for choosing? I'm assuming what they're looking for in candidates, like what they're, so not hiring the top 10, or not hiring, but not looking into what else is. Is there a follow-up question on this? Let me see. Nope, that's all the question that's there.
That's fine.
I'm looking back at the notes, and within hiring criteria, it's giving quotes from all of the different, well, not all of the different, but several of the different executives. And I don't know that they have specific criteria that they're looking for. The reason that they're not going with the top tier schools is because they want somebody who's the best in their program. That's why they went down the top 25 list, is because in the top schools, they were only getting middle of the road, and that's not what they were looking for. But as I'm looking at the criteria, one person said they want the type of person who does well and doesn't want to be told what to do. They want a self-starter. It makes a big difference if somebody's been an entrepreneur. They want to be able to change to make the structure fit, creating jobs for those that they could hire. They're willing to stretch for personality, stretch for sparkle. They especially want creativity and energy, which is why what they're looking for in a financial advisor is creativity and energy. So it sounds like it's as much about, or more about, personality and the right fit for the job requirements as academics and experience.
I felt like that too. I was impressed with the fact they didn't go with the top tier schools. Often when you hit top tier schools, you get people who tutored their whole life and their parents pay for their education. But when you get to good schools and people at the top of their game, they're working so hard. They may have to work part-time during school or, full-time and to get through. And there's different qualities that come out with people like that. There's a drive and there's a discipline, a self-discipline, I think. I was impressed with his way he approached hiring. I thought that was smart.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting and funny at the same time that it says that a lot of the bankers resisted the science of the recruiting and hiring process.
I thought that too.
Because like usually like the most typical thing is to hire those people who were like 4.0 students and like have so much experience. But yeah, like as Erin was saying as she was going through the paragraph here, like it seems like they're going more for personality or somebody that they can kind of mold more into what they want to be rather than have someone that's already a certain way and have them do the work.
So I just read the notes on this question, and so it says that the criteria aren't very clear. So there you go. And it says that we'll probably mention things like fit and sparkle, and to define what fit and sparkle are, and if those things are those biases towards people.
They are biases and they're all subjective. What I think is sparkling about somebody's personality, you may not. And so they need to have more defined characteristics if they want it to be scientific, It's interesting.
Yeah. I think you need more than just like a graph of like what they need to be. I think people are a lot more than a computerized list of, there's parts of aspects of personalities can be huge. If you get, to me, the biggest turnoff is when you go to a business and the secretary is the first line. If she is crusty, or it's a major turnoff, I don't know. I think it takes more than just GPA, which makes sense why they're feeling it out.
Okay, so then moving on to part 3, unless someone else has any more comments. No? Okay. So in school recruiting. So deciding which business schools to recruit at. So deciding which business schools to recruit at was controversial. Why was the choice of which schools to recruit at? Why was the choice to recruit of which schools? Why am I sorry, you guys? Why was the choice of which schools to recruit at so important to S.G. Cohen? Sorry, I'm like on the struggle bus today.
On the struggle bus, that was cute.
Okay.
I thought it's because the main management, the ones who weren't really working as much, I think, with the lower level employees, I think they were a little detached because they thought, oh, the best, we want the best. And I think they weren't thinking about other aspects, I don't know. That's what I think.
Well, one of the things that was mentioned was that if they made an offer, they wanted an acceptance. And when you are in the heat of recruiting the very top candidates from the very top schools, a company that's as little as SG Cowan is not going to be a front runner for those interns. They're just not a big enough company with enough brand recognition, for lack of a better way to put it. And so it's not that they didn't want terrific people. They do want terrific people. But when you're competing for those top of the line students from the top tier schools, you're just not going to be able to compete. And so I think moving down the list and getting the better students at good schools, not necessarily the top schools, I think it plays in their favor. And I think that was a super smart move, honestly.
I do too. I agree with you.
That I agree with you 100%. Yeah. So the following question, is race course school strategy a good one or not? And you just said it, it is. It's a good strategy for him to not just recruit from the top tier, but those good students that showed interest.
And that's as important as anything else. You want somebody that's going to be a go-getter. You want somebody who wants to work for you, who's going to perform well. If you hire somebody that you're their second, third, fourth, fifth choice, you're not going to get the best outcome as if somebody that's happy and excited and wants to work for you.
I think
I agree.
also there's like a sense of pride that comes with graduates from certain top tier schools, and they just feel like they know more than other people, and they're less willing to learn things on the job. Whereas people who have worked really hard to be at that place that they're at are willing to take those steps to just like keep learning and do everything the way that the boss would want, and just like keep progressing in that way and stay more humble, I think.
I totally agree, Nolan. I think you're right on with that.
You know, and it's hard. It's hard because you want to give everybody a chance, you know, top tier, not to be the best. But I agree with you too. Like, I'd rather work with someone humble and willing with a little less GPA than someone, you know, inflexible who thinks they know more than you do.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Okay, and so it's the following question is, should SG Cohen change from the core school strategy now that it's an employer's market again? They could probably go back to the top 10 schools and get top applicants now. What do you guys think? I say no.
I agree. I'm on that no wavelength there. I think the strategy that they have is excellent, and I think they are going to get somebody that's a little more hungry and a little more ambitious and a little more willing to work hard for them, and that's more important.
I really like that they're going to be a little bit more hungry. I really like that you said that. That's like an excellent way to put it, in putting that ambition or that motivation.
Well, and if they're happy with their own results, you know, if they like the people they've hired, then their strategy proves itself, you know.
Yeah.
Also, the very first statement of the whole article is, "We are who we recruit." So they are defining their culture, and if they maintain this and don't change, then they're going to have consistency.
Okay, so what are the pros and cons approach to recruiting on campus?
A con might be they have less experience to go off of.
Yeah. Are they limiting themselves to one campus is what I'm thinking, you know. I mean, they are in that particular day, but you know, you want to you're probably getting a little bit more narrow versus the open market, but maybe it's good that it narrows it a little bit. Maybe you just get just as good of recruits. You could pay them less starting out lower when you would pay people less. So that's an advantage.
That's absolutely part of their consideration too. You know it is.
Yeah.
The less they can pay, the more money is in their pockets. That's absolutely a consideration.
That's true. I mean, they can work as interns, and then you don't really have to pay them. I mean, you should, but
I think part of the that I would classify as a con is that you have one of the things he mentioned in the article was that they placed people with their alma mater. So there's a lot of school pride that seems to develop. And so you're going to have people who are going to advocate for their
School.
alumnus
Yeah.
cohorts more than they would for somebody else. And so I think you run a fine line. You want somebody who's familiar with the culture at the school, and you want somebody that's excited to speak with fellow students, but you also will run into people who are going to advocate maybe not for the best candidate, but for their favorite candidate from their school. And so
Yes.
that could be tricky.
It's a very
I
good
wonder
point.
even if that could start like cliques or little groups that just.
Well, fraternities and sororities, that's a
Yes.
major networking thing. And I don't think that we see it so much in the church, because we within the church seem to have our own clique with church members. But outside of mainstream Mormonism, on typical college campuses, sororities and fraternities are a very, very big thing. And where I live, you see people's license plates framed, 40 and 50-year-old people still advertising their sorority or fraternity on their car, because it's such a part of their college experience. And, those are their friends. That's their inner network. And so things like that come into play in the business world also.
Absolutely.
I think like inside the church, our form of sororities or fraternities is our missions, just because like it's that kind of networking group that we have. Like those are our friends, those are the people we know, and they're from all over.
Mm-hmm.
And so no matter where we go, we know somebody. So yeah, I think that's kind of like our fraternity, I guess.
You're
But
absolutely right.
yeah.
And I think that goes along the lines of the last question for this section, which is, what do you think of the self-selection process? What types of people will most likely self-select? So, I think people that, let me check my notes.
I have a thought. I think that people who have kind of the drive to be where they are, like what came to mind for me is I'm going in a direction that I originally didn't think I was going to go, and for looking for what my career might be. And one of the things that directed me that way was, along the way I had a course where I did a project and I learned something new, and it sparked my drive. And so I kind of like the idea that they're looking for people that have that, because it's almost like, and that was another thing that director said that I interviewed. He's like, some people decide that this is their calling, if you will, and so they're like, this is what they want to do. Like, they want to bank, they want to do international business, they want to do whatever. And so when there's that direction, when a person feels like they're, if you will, being guided in that direction, I don't know, it sounds kind of hokey, but then they're going to want to have the ambition to be successful at it.
Will you repeat the question again? I got off track. I didn't want to say if it wasn't right on topic.
No, I was looking at my notes so that I also had the right. So it says, what do you think of the self-selection process? What types of people will most likely self-select? And so that's so that's about Ray encouraging the team captains to make formal presentations on their own time and on their own expense. And then those candidates, or let me see, those team captains were more likely to have their candidates be hired.
I think for somebody willing to put themselves out there and do something that is really considered above and beyond shows initiative that they're looking for. You know, for somebody to be willing to fly to them, to interview, to talk, to ask questions really shows much more interest than somebody who just shows up the day of and just, you know, hands out the copies of their resume and is very laissez-faire about it. They want somebody who has initiative and has drive. And I think that you have to be very confident in yourself to be willing to self-select in that way, to put yourself out there, to make the effort, to show the initiative. And I think that would be very impressive to them.
I agree. I agree. I feel like so much of business is connections that you make with people. I think that's like 50% or more hiring. Just because, you know, the more they feel comfortable with you, the more likely they are to get you an interview, more likely they are, you know, and so on.
Okay, and so for our part 4 on the Super Saturday, what are the objectives of Super Saturday? And that's where they have the lunch, I think they also have cocktails. They have the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the objective for that is.
To me, it just sounds like a very quick and intense hiring process. They, you know, they have a little more relaxed atmosphere with the dinner and drinks out with the group, but that's absolutely part of the interview, because they mentioned later when they're talking about the 4 different candidates, they mentioned Natalia being more stiff and reserved. That was from the dinner the night before. So the whole scenario with Super Saturday to me is just a mega hiring fair, for lack of a better way to put it.
You're right, though. It is. So would the objectives be to narrow down who they like socially?
I think that is one of the objectives. Absolutely. Because they need to know that the person is going to fit, you know, socially, for lack of a better way to put it, but fit the company culture. You need to see somebody in a social setting to get different aspects of their personality. It's absolutely part of it.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. That's great too, because if you remember the cases last week, that was what one of the problems was with the legal problems. I can't remember the fellow's name, but he wasn't willing to go out and socialize, and they wanted that, and then he filed a discrimination case against the company. So, you know, you want to know if people are going to fall in.
So this is interesting that the topic kind of went right here. When I was interviewing my HR professional, she's an LDS lady who's an HR professional. I do not know her. I'd never met her before. But we had a really, really interesting talk, because we were talking about how favorites can happen within a company. And the last place I worked, the manager, without a doubt, had her favorites. And it just so happened that it was the people that went out with her to happy hour, and they would get drinks and appetizers after work. They were the ones getting the promotions. They were the ones getting the awards. They were the ones getting the recognition that wasn't always deserved. And my HR professional, she said the same thing. She said she had a work situation where drinks was absolutely part of the group's culture. And because she was LDS and she wasn't going out and drinking with them, you know, after work several days a week, she was almost ostracized. And so we don't want it to be part of the criteria in that negative connotation, but that is part of it. You know, are we not fitting into company culture if we are not willing to go out and drink and party and do those things that other people are willing to do? And I'm not saying we need to compromise our values to do it, but there needs to be a different opportunity to socialize and have that connection away from alcohol.
Other people might have the opposite. You know, if they want to order alcohol and there's a bunch of Mormons, you know, they might feel a turnoff in a different way.
Absolutely true. Absolutely.
I hadn't thought of that. That's a great point also. Which, I mean, I think we answered this following question, that it was, do any of the objectives conflict with one another? And I think we decided that yes, definitely.
Excuse me.
Okay, so the following question is, what kind of information did S.G. Cohen gain from candidates during this process? Oh, well, we also spoke about that. So then let's go on to the next one, which is, do you think there would be better ways to structure the on-campus interviewing and recruiting?
I can't think of anything. Maybe unless they put different people, not with their alumni, on a different day. I don't know.
Switching things up.
On-campus recruiting just seems less realistic when the interviewees are brought to the company. I think that's more realistic.
Okay, and then anyone else? If not, we can go on to the concluding question of this part, which is, what are the pros and cons for the Super Saturday approach?
I would say that because it's such a high stress situation, I would think that they're not going to get the best from their candidates. I think if they had something a little more casual, a little more social, that they would get different aspects of the personality. I think it's a very high stress situation to do 30 interviews practically in 6 hours. It's almost like running an obstacle course. I would feel beat up with that style.
Walmart came here and they had an interview marathon, and they interviewed so many people. I don't know. It seems like you'd forget about the first person you interviewed.
That's absolutely true, Nathan. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how they do it. It must work.
I would have a hard time just like not feeling so overwhelmed, as in, let's say if I were interviewing someone and I feel so overwhelmed and my mind would just get cloudy, just so many people, I would feel drained. I don't know if I would be my best self in interviewing someone if I had to see so many people.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of a dance. It also, like, even church, in a young single adult ward, for instance, but there is something that happens, that this is why I brought this up. You scope out, you're able to look at a line or a group of people and say, oh, that one might work, that one no, for sure no, that one yes, that one maybe, okay, so I'll talk to them. And it's kind of an instinct thing, and so it's how people dress, it's how people act, it's kind of I guess too, it depends on the hiring personnel, because that's where you want to have the person, these interview, sorry, I forget their names, but Ray and the others, they've got this person in mind that they want to fill the slot with. But it's kind of nice to have a group in front of you, because you can get some ideas of what you really want based on the person, and then if you can get their qualifications also, and the person and the qualifications are good, then you've got a bigger possibility for a match. Kind of like what I was saying for a dance, or for things like that. If you get the chance to see them and talk with them and socialize with them and all that, then it kind of makes a more complete interview process.
Definitely.
That was a good analogy.
Thanks.
I never got
Nathan
that to dance. Just
what's that? Well, when Nathan said that it works for Walmart, I'm like, well, I guess, the young single adults and the institute and things, it works for finding, or I guess the meat market is what came to mind for me. That's what brought it up when Nathan, when you said it works, it does, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, one idea I had as maybe a pro for that style is just the idea that you get so many people, and a lot of those people are the kinds of personalities that maybe wouldn't put forth the effort to go to the company, just because like they're a little more shy or timid, but they might be the perfect fit for that specific company or that specific position. And so like being able to have more options and see all the differences like might be one of those things that's a pro. Maybe that's why it's successful for Walmart when they come here. I don't know, but yeah.
I see. Makes sense. Okay, so we have the final wrap up. And so what is the difference between recruiting and hiring? For me, I would say recruiting is like you spend more time with a company or an individual and you kind of get to like nurture it. I'm gonna make another analogy, like a plant. You see it from the beginning and you trim it to your liking, and hiring, you just might go to Walmart and get your own plant that's already grown. That's for me.
Yeah, I
I
totally agree.
I think recruiting is more you are seeking out as the company or the manager, you are seeking out what you are looking for. And I think hiring, it's a little more you take what you get. And so I think successful companies are the ones that recruit well and really have a specific plan in mind and really have criteria in mind and really can have a proven success rate and good track record because they go after the right people that fit their company culture and fit the skills that they need.
It's like a fishing expedition for employees. Yeah.
All sorts of analogies today. I like it. Anyone else? Okay, so then what did you learn from this case about recruiting?
The thing that stuck in my mind out, my husband's going to try to specialize, and people had told me that it's so much more about your connections than it is certain GPA. And it's what he's particularly doing. And I was like, it's so important to get out there and go to so many schools and meet the people and introduce yourself. And anyway, it just hit me again how important that is, when they were talking about the dinners and everything, to really socialize. And, it may not be your first intuition. Some people it's natural and some people it's not,
Yeah. Okay, so what did you learn about hiring?
Don't have too many people try to hire somebody.
Really good.
The candidates don't have to be the top 10 to be amazing. That humility is a good thing.
True.
Self-starters.
Okay, and now the fun question of the whole assignment for myself. Ask each team member to rate the overall quality of today's discussion from 0 to 10.
I will give you a 10.
Perfect. I think it went really well. I think we covered it. We talked about everything that was on the curriculum, and we got to get new ideas and discuss. So I thought it went really well.
It was a good, productive meeting, no doubt.
I think by the time we had all the fun analogies, I'd definitely give us a 10 today.
It shows we're really synthesizing this information and we really understand it.
Hey, I have a thought. Speaking of teams and all that, what's everyone's feedback on the doohickeys? How we did? Everyone got things submitted. I was really pleased. I think we were a strong team. I don't know if this is the time to bring this up, but I thought everyone wrote really, really well. I thought that we all contributed evenly. Erin, you did a lot of great leadership for it. In fact, like I said, I don't know if this is the timing for that, but that was my thought as we're closing up, how are we doing? And then how did we do on this discussion? Then it reminded me how we did, I thought, as a team for the doohickeys.
I think this is a great time to bring it up, and I wanted to, so I didn't want to interrupt Arlie's meeting, but I did want to talk about this just a little bit. Thank you all for your hard work. I know it was a lot of work. I want to get everybody's kind of opinion and feedback. From what I'm reading about the next assignments with the doohickeys, it seems to me like we keep the same scenario. It's the exact same company with the exact same information that we have, but this next time we write the paper, we're focused on the recruiting and the next 3 topics. So it's all the exact same information. We're just approaching the problems from a different perspective and giving solutions based on these 3 weeks, this week, next week, and the following week. So keep that in mind as we are going through these lessons, specifically this week and next week, and really be thinking about, now that we've studied the doohickeys case a little bit more in depth and we've really worked through it, look at it with the lens of recruitment and hiring this week, and then, the following topics. Just as a side note, the idea that I have with this is that we are turning in a professional document. Like, we are the HR professionals and we're presenting this document to the leadership in this company for changes to happen. And I just want everybody to be very cognizant not to be too conversational in their writing. Be very careful if you're going to give an example. Use a direct quote from the example, from the doohickeys case, and don't write like you speak. Don't do a lot of you knows, and don't do a lot of I thinks, and don't do a lot of those types of things. Really put on your, I'm an HR professional and this is going to the highest up workers in this company, and we need to affect change, and this is how we're going to affect change. So just as a thought there. Okay.
I appreciate it.
Anyone have any thoughts on what we could do for the next assignment? Still the same setup, the same thing, just what Erin said. Okay. Fantastic.
Who's doing it next time? Who's in charge again?
It's me.
Think.
Yeah, and I'll probably need some help doing the invitation and the setup and the recording, actually. Arlie, we walked through that a little bit. Maybe we could review it again.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Are you recording this one today, or is Erin recording?
Yes, it's recording.
Arlie's got it today.
Arlie's got it. Okay, cool. I'll meet with Arlie and we'll review. Is that okay with you, Arlie?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good, thanks. Thanks for that help.
Specifically for the doohickeys paper, I think we talked about Nathan leading for the doohickeys next time. Is that correct?
I know I'm one of the times.
You are the next one. I'm looking at the schedule. So our next topics for the next paper are recruiting, career development and workplace safety. And Nathan's going to be the one to lead week 8 after Connie, and is going to be the doohickeys paper compiler, editor, and turner inner.
Darren, what do you feel? Is there a simpler way to do it? Should the main person come up with the questions and sign them out? What do you think would be more simple? What do you think? I was just curious, having experience.
It was, I think we had a good outline, and I think having everybody kind of choose their piece that they took helped everyone to write in a more passionate way about it. The struggle came with putting it together. I spent probably 10 hours